Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have a very special guest, just a little north than I am, and everyone seems to think that I'm really north, and I'm not. But I have the one, the only, the oh-so-special Mr. Mike Currie with me from the Steel Auto Group. Hey, Mike, thanks for taking the time to jam with me.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Hey, Mike, I thought it'd be kind of fun to kick off our conversation today with an origin story. I know, for a lot of us, we get into this business one of two ways. Either we kind of fumbled our way into it or we were born into it. So I'd love to hear your story. Mike, how did you start in this crazy little world we call the automotive space?
Sure. I actually started in the business as an auto mechanic. That would have been 25 years ago. So I was class 1995. And then I got into dealing with being like part-time service advisor while I was a technician. And then that morphed into sales. And 25 years later, here I am. I'm general manager at Steel Hyundai, part of the Steel Auto Group. And as well, we have the Genesis franchise here in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
So that's crazy. I mean, how do you go from kind of the back of the dealership to the front? When was that transition? And I'm just curious, was it just like one day you're like, I'm ready to put my wrenches away and I want to go sell cars? How did that go down for you?
It kind of, and maybe disillusioned or illusioned, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And I kind of admired the sales team. They seemed to be oh so chill. Maybe that's not really what it was like when I became a salesperson, mind you. But, they're driving the nice cars and hanging out. And I was like, wow, I want to be that. I want to do that. So it just it was over time. It's not like it happened overnight, but it was a gradual progression along the way. So.
Now, you know what? It's funny. I was just posting something earlier today on LinkedIn about kind of your first, right? And I remember my first car deal, right? It was a 1996 two-door Ford Escort hatchback with a manual transmission and no air conditioning. Mike, do you remember what your first one was, or one of your first?
I would say one of my first, interesting story, because I was working for a small independent, used car lot in sales, and then I went to a Volkswagen store, but I was heavy into selling. We were selling used Japanese cars primarily at this used car place, and so my first car that I sold at a Volkswagen store was a 1996 Honda Civic. So it was kind of like it ended up being a used car, and it was a Honda Civic that had been traded in at the Volkswagen store. So,
did they cut your tie? I'm just curious. Did they cut your tie when you sold yours?
You know what? Now I've done that to other people throughout the years, but no one cut my tie at the time. I think back then. I'm not even sure we were wearing ties at the time. I think we're more like a golf shirt sort of store, and especially with VW, they got so much VW swag. So
now, I think it's actually really cool that we used to do stuff like that, right? Because it really kind of celebrated the event. And I was commenting because I was at a dealership the other day, and this young salesperson, which frankly, and this too, it's hard to get younger new blood kind of into our space. They had worked really hard to complete this first deal. In fact, almost everything that could have gone wrong with this deal potentially did go wrong with the deal. So it was a great first deal for them, right? And he finally got it, and was excited beyond belief, but then nobody around them was really kind of celebrating it. So I kind of had to jump in. I'm like, look, we got to take a moment and just remember this. And I think what it is kind of as an industry, we get super close to our day-to-day operations and we forget. I mean, you remember selling your 96 Honda Civic, like, yeah, that chest was a little higher, right? You're like, oh man, I can do this now. Thousands of cars later, right? So,
yeah.
But you guys have done such an amazing job of creating culture within your dealership, and we connected, the two of us, on LinkedIn. It seems like almost several years ago. Actually, it's been a little while. Yeah. But I've always seen these cool posts that you guys have about, kind of your culture and your dealership. And I'm just kind of curious, is that something that was more kind of, that came about organic, or did you really kind of push to create the culture within the dealership?
I think for me, it's daily. It's got to be top of mind and conscious of it. But I feel like you can get lost in the day-to-day pretty easy in this business. And you can get pulled in 5,000 directions and all that sort of stuff. But just trying to get everyone to remember that these people are buying, like, maybe their first car, maybe their 10th car, whatever, but trying to create an experience that's like nowhere else they're going to find. And one thing that we'll do, and I don't mean this as a knock at any other dealers, like, there's fantastic dealers out there, but what I find is that we work hard on consciously creating a vibe, because a lot of stores I walk into, I really feel like they're like the morgue, and I feel like everyone's kind of heads down. And I find that, even as a dealer that's been in, hundreds of dealers, I find that even almost intimidating. So I think, well, how would a customer feel? So we try to create something both in our service and our sales side of, trying to be in the customer's shoes. And like, if you ever walked into a retail clothing store and everyone's hanging out talking about the night before and they're not there ready to serve, well, we want to be ready to serve. We want to be, whether they come through the door to buy a bolt or find our service department or whatever, or buy a car, used car, new car, we want to make sure that we create a really upbeat experience for that client. And that's kind of what we do. So I always joke, I always say, okay, let's put the music on, but let's maybe turn it up a little too high. So a lot of people say, oh, you guys always sound like you have a party going on, right? Well, we create that. That's what we do, because we want people to have fun. We want people to remember the experience. And that's what we try to create every day. Is it conscious, top of mind? Yeah, we talk about it all the time. All the time.
I love the fact that you had a word for it, right? Like, you called it the vibe. And I've never had a word for it. But the second you said that, I was like, yeah, you're 100% right. I like, you have been in hundreds of dealerships, and you're 100% right. You can walk right into a dealership and you just get this vibe of either it's good or it's bad, or it almost feels stale, like there's just like a lack of energy in the place. And I find that, you can get your team jacked up, like Saturdays, easy, right? Get them in there, get them motivated, and like you can kind of push that energy throughout the entire day. But it's the Monday through Fridays that I see where it really kind of struggles. And I know, especially going into Q4 now, which is our slower time of the year, it's going to get cold. It's going to get really cold for you guys. This white stuff's going to start covering the entire ground, and there's lack of sun and vitamin D. And it's like, I feel like you almost have to like process your way to the vibe. It's like the vibe process. That's what I think I'm going to call it. So can you give me a couple examples that you have kind of processed out to ensure that, that vibe is always kind of consistent at your dealership?
Well, the biggest thing is heads up. So no matter whoever, like, greetings, like instantaneous greetings to clients that walk in, like every single time, no exceptions, whoever you are in the store. So it can be anybody. So that goes right through the whole dealership. And that's the number one, secret to the recipe, I guess, right? So
Well, because it's a first impression, and
yeah,
that first impression is everything. Now, I got to ask you because I phone a lot of dealerships, and
yes,
Mike, I have to admit, uh, oh man, sometimes I'll say a lot of times I get that person on the phone that just literally sounds like they would rather be in 15 other places than where they are
yeah.
right now. And I'm just kind of curious, like, for you guys, your phone policy, because I know it's a little tiny thing, but I'm still amazed how many
Yep.
dealerships out there don't have one. But I'm pretty confident you probably do. What does that kind
Oh
of phone
yeah.
policy look like for you?
Well, for us, well, obviously, sure, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but just making sure to answer and make sure to always be smiling. So we do kind of like we bring things like the phone, I want to call it phone training, but like we used to have the stickers on the phones that literally said smile when you answer the phone, right? Like, right down to that point. But it's a matter of making sure that we're prepared. So what we do is a lot of work with the people that are going to be reception's relatively easy. Like, our reception's friendly and all that sort of stuff. It's just making sure that our salespeople are prepared. So we go over all our programs. So we have certain little flyers that we do up. So we put them out there on social media. We're a little bit into social media in case anyone noticed or not. We get a lot of our activity is driven by social media. And so we need to make sure that experience, so whatever we're putting out there online has to line up with whatever's happening in the store.
I
And
I
we
think that's
do,
awesome. Like it's all
yeah,
about
we do
preparation, right?
report. What's that? Yeah.
It's all about preparation. Like
Yeah.
you have to be prepared for the customer. Like if
Yeah.
we have the goal and objective to actually want to knock that first impression out of the park, we can't half-ass it or just kind of
No.
jump into it with no plan or thoughts or strategy to it. Like you actually have to be prepared. Now you touched up on something that I want to go into because it was kind of the reason that we got connected into this conversation. And it's like you guys have had a pretty long commitment to social media. In fact, I'm not 100% sure how long. So let's actually start with that. How long has this commitment to social media been for you? And curious, why? Why'd you guys decide to jump into it?
Now, for me, like I have a long, long, long legacy of social media. I was in the social media and car dealerships before it was cool. But I took over this store. It'll be 3 years. Well, it'll be 3 years in February. So it's been a little bit of a journey. And I had the opportunity to bring on one of my managers, keen managers, and we started on sort of a social media journey previous to being here. They just, it just wasn't a priority or whatever, right? It's like, no, doesn't matter for whatever reasons, but it just wasn't. And it's something that I believed in because of the fact that I've had great results with it over the years, right? And so we just came up with more of I don't know, I call it more of a social media strategy. But the thing that works in any business, whatever you're into, is daily consistency over long periods of time, right? So it's like, there's no secret to it, but developing the culture to get people to do it takes time. It takes a lot of time out of your day. For me, I have some fun with it. So, I'll have to admit, for me, it's probably easier to direct that at the store because, I'm kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call it a hobby, but I like building campaigns. I like doing a lot of the stuff myself. I like learning about, how to make YouTube videos and, how Google works. And I got onto Google My Business like recently, and it was like, I don't know if I was under a rock or just happened to find it, but it's just incredible, this resource that's sitting right there, thanks to Google, love them or hate them. But it's just this huge traffic fire, that was just sitting there. So it's an evolutionary process. And I would say that right now, where we're almost 3 years in, we've we've gone down a process which is getting us consistent results month after month after month.
And that really is kind of the biggest kind of starting point for a lot of dealerships, right? I think a lot of people go like, I love what Mike does up there, and I love what the dealership does. I love what the group does. The group actually does a good job as well, But I get asked a lot of questions like, but how do I get started? And I think you nailed it, right? It's literally just the doing part. Like, everybody thinks that you gotta like create this amazing monster silver bullet of a strategy, before you can pick up a phone and type something or take a picture. It's like, but that's not the case. You just gotta start to do. But then you create the routine of doing. And the routine of the doing, I think, is probably the biggest hurdle for anybody out there that is trying to get into social media or embrace it for their. But then I find the second part is kind of understanding, why they're doing it the way that they're doing it, right? So then it's this. It's first thing is just doing. Second thing is creating the routine. Kind of that third part is then really kind of understanding, what is kind of our expectations out of what can we expect to get out of the time and effort that we're going to put into it. And then once to your point, Mike, like once the routine is there, then you can start putting in some cool strategies and having some fun with campaigns and stuff like that. And actually, I'm curious, that's a good question for you. Name me one of your favorite campaigns that you've run in the last few years, and why was it your favorite? You see, you already gave one, so I know which one it was.
Well, there's not just one, but one thing that's kind of fun that we do is, so I have this one sales guy, Johnny. So it's not me, but anyways, he does. We call them Johnny Specials because he does up the ads, but he does these almost like cartoon-like ish ads. And he always wants to do some crazy giveaway with it. So whether it's like big TVs or he always wants to give away stuff, right? So we had, one in particular, one last year. It's just on a Tucson all-wheel drive sort of thing. It's big, like a 60-inch TV. So we bring in the TVs and all that sort of stuff. And people are like, they're psyched for them. Like we have a lot of fun with some of those Johnny Specials. And some of them, it's just the wording he uses. They're a little edgy. Like some of them are pretty outrageous. Like it's like, can we do that? And we're like, what the hell, right? It's a Saturday, or it's and sometimes it'll be a lost leader, right? Like, we might not make any money, but if we sell that specific car or whatever, if we have 4 or 5 of them, we want to make them go away. It's like, okay, well, let's put the Johnny Special on those 5 cars, and they'll be gone, right? We're like, well, worst case scenario, they'll all be gone by the end of the weekend, right? And so it's kind of like the worst is the best, but we do some cool stuff. Like right now we're sponsoring the local hockey team. So when they win for 48 hours afterwards, invoice pricing, right? So, it's like, might not be a big money maker if they win, but it's a lot of fun, and we'll get cars over the curb, and people
and fun is the
people are
keyword.
Responding well,
right? Like fun really is the keyword here. So I think a lot of people think like it's like they almost think too much into it, right? Like the idea behind putting together a social campaign should be that it generates energy and fun for both the staff and the customers. I do find it kind of has to be kind of both of them together, right? If the two of them have fun, but then also it's got to be relevant to your audience. Look, I mean, how local of a perfect campaign is that? It's like if these guys win, we're doing invoice pricing. It's no different than I think like when we used to go to the baseball games or something like that, and if they won, your ticket was redeemable for like a free piece of pizza at Pizza or something like that. Like it's a good fun just social campaign, but you have to know your audience to dive into it. Now, speaking of social, it was kind of what we wanted to jump on this call with and talk about. Is you sent me this little guy.
Let's get a good look at that.
This little guy right here. So this is a cool campaign. This is I think there's a lot to this campaign. It's probably more branding than it is. It's not necessarily marketing. This is more of a branding play. It's connecting with others and something that's super important to you. But I'll kind of let you explain. What is the deal, Mike, with these super cute bears?
So this is a Steel Auto Group campaign. So and this goes back. This is our 6th year doing this as an auto group. And the basics are between a certain period of time. That's specific to the teddy bears is between September 8th and October 24th. We donate $50 for every new and used retail vehicle in all our stores. We have 41 dealerships, and that goes to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So we're linked up with them. As well as that $50, one of those bears gets donated to a patient. So it's $50 donation plus they get a bear. So it's a really cool campaign. So in the last 5 years, because we're in the thick of year number 6, we've raised as an auto group $511,000 so far. And so beyond that, every store puts on certain campaigns. So you'll see on a lot of our social media that, and one thing as an auto group, we're very, very dedicated to social media, and which many people probably already know. And we do have a team, and we do have a strategy in place, which we'll do as a group oftentimes, because we can make a lot more impact by having us all work together on a campaign like this. And so you'll see all kinds of crazy contests that contribute to this money, including we have Tracy Scanlon, who heads up our steel leasing department, but she was previously at our Ford dealership, and she was named Woman of the Year for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and she raised herself over $26,000. I mean, we're big money. And the interesting thing is that we have a part-time receptionist here at our own dealership here at Steel Hyundai, who actually, she just came back, just started last week, back from 6 months of treatment for leukemia. So, and when we start looking around the group, there are a few others that are affected by this disease, by this cancer. And it's interesting because with their research, there's direct impact. Like the survival rates are just unbelievably high. And, so it's exciting for us as a dealer and as an auto group that we get to be part of that. It's like we're, not just selling cars, we're making an impact on the community and on people's lives, and making lives better for so many people, and having some fun doing it. People love the bears. They can also buy the bears. Like, we'll sell them for $10 each, or for donations, or what have you, right? So.
Well, I'm just going to say these bears are insanely cute. So anybody out there that has kids, my kids are so looking forward to playing with this. In fact, I told them they couldn't for the last week until I did this video with you, because I was concerned it was going to get dirty. So they're so excited after school today. They get to play with this bear. But I mean, Mike, it's one thing to be, in the community. It's another thing to be a part of the community. And I find that, dealerships have always kind of struggled to figure that one out, right? It's like, they'll take a car and they'll put it at the shopping mall. And they're like, no, we're in the community. No, you're not. Well, we parked a truck at the local Rib Fest. Well, okay, that's cool, but that's not being in the I think it's our kind of responsibility as a business, given the gifts that we have, to not just be in the community, but really be a part of it and to contribute. And it's to contribute. And, I find dealers really kind of struggle with this one to figuring out, like, how do they contribute? Because sometimes it's almost too easy just to kind of cut a check and handed over, but it's a lot more meaningful when we bring our entire culture and our entire business into the contribution or the contribution, the charity that we're trying to sponsor. So here's my kind of question for you: is like dealerships out there that are thinking of doing this, how would you say they kind of get started? What are kind of the 2 or 3 things that they need to think about, to really be a part of the community, not just in the community?
Well, I think like as an auto group, and I can only speak to our auto group, is that sometimes people lose sight of the fact that we're a family-run business. We're just really, really big. So we are I'm a family guy. Our president, Kim Day, his kid, family, our VPs and all the people that we have work for us. So we are the fabric of the community. Like we have over 2,000 employees in all the Atlantic provinces, and so we're out there. So we already impact a lot of lives and families just by being, right? So I think as what I'd recommend, even if it's an independent or a dealer group or whatever it is, but just to kind of spread that message, right? So for us, we do a lot of stuff collectively. So what something like this does is, if you want to make a big impact, is go and contact someone like the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society or whatever. Some might have a special meeting to an individual. If someone's had a heart attack, maybe the Heart and Stroke Foundation or whatever it is. But with the realization that as a giant, or a big family-run business, that you can make an impact. And when you bring everyone together, so what we do is, as a group, it may sound strange, like, sometimes you think like there's 41 dealers, but we're actually all very close. Like, from a GM and the executives and I know a lot of the employees at various stores, so it really has a more, I don't know, kind of a family vibe or whatever. Like we do communicate a lot throughout the group. So I would recommend anyone, to just start somewhere, but to get affiliated with something like this. Now, where we do make a big impact with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, well, they're happy to help. Let's just put it that way. They're very, very supportive of our fundraising efforts, and they're coming out to the dealerships, and they'll come and do seminars. They'll do whatever you want to help. So it's really, all of a sudden you see a team, and what they bring is they can tell you the actual people that you're helping. So you're bringing real stories. So we have Jarek's one of our heroes. So he goes around and visits a lot of the stores, and he's a young man that was, he's a cancer survivor, and he'll go around to the stores and go meet with people, and he's into cars. So we have a Porsche dealer. He loves to go and hang out at the Porsche store, and so we just try to get out there in the community, and this event happens to lead up to a huge walk. It's the Light the Night Walk, which is a national event carried out in many cities across the country. And this year it's going to be virtual, unfortunately, but usually at that event there's hundreds of our own, Steel Auto Group employees out there, supporting the cause.
Well, I think like collaborating and working closely with with other brands like this is really kind of key to doing so. And I agree with you. I think what is, you have to really kind of create that relationship. Like I said, we're trying to avoid the fact of you're just going to kind of check and give it over. It's like, no, you really got to lean into some of these amazing causes out there, and I feel like if you lean into them, a good one will lean back into you guys, and collectively you can do some really, really cool stuff together. Look, I think this is just totally awesome. like I said, my kids are so excited to have one, and nothing but just major props to you guys for doing this. Like I know it's towards the tail end of our time today, but before we go, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now, and would love to connect with you and or the Steel Group and just kind of follow along with you guys' journey, because you guys are doing so much cool stuff. And I implore anybody that's looking to get some examples of really social media and social media kind of culture, Mike, the team at the Hyundai dealership, and just the entire group in general does a phenomenal job at it, for check them out. But what is the best way someone connect with you, Mike?
Yeah, for me, it's email's always best for me. It's just mcurrie, MCURRIE at steelauto.com, STEELE auto.com. And of course, the Steel Auto Group, we have some phenomenal folks over there that are in our marketing and communications teams. And at steelauto.com, you can find those folks and reach out. Everyone's, we're all in this together, so we're always happy to share. I'm always happy to talk car business theory, just because this is not just a job or the way I make my living, but it's a bit of a hobby and a passion for me. So
Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a lot of fun. I'm pretty confident this won't be the first or last time that we do this. I really look forward to having you on again sometime here in the future. Thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. You have yourself a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy Mob podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to sign up to Be a Mobster at strategymob.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.